Good afternoon and welcome to everybody. I am Stefania Romenti. I'm the president of the EUPRERA Association, the association which organizes these webinars, the EUPRERA Talks. Today we will talk about education, but before introducing the webinar of today, I would like to remind you that EUPRERA organizes a lot of webinars, so I'd like to remind you the next meetings. First of all, the 3rd of November, we will have a webinar about communication in uncertain times, how organizations deal with issues, risks, and crises, moderated by Professor Chiara Valentini of the University of Jyväskylä. And then on 10th of November, we will have another webinar about European Communication Monitor, 15 years of insights of this research supported and promoted by EUPRERA. Today we talk about education, since EUPRERA is an association that promotes not only scientific research but also education, and I want to introduce Monique Abbenbroek, who is the co-leader of the Education Network together with Anka Anton. Monique, you will introduce Anka later. The Education Network is a new network, very active, and today you will describe all the initiatives, and above all, I think that you will discuss the insights from the Prague Education Café, which was very successful during the last conference of EUPRERA. So thank you for your work, and I leave the floor to Monique Abbenbroek. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stefania, for your kind words. Yes, indeed. My name is Monique Abbenbroek. I'm one of the co-leaders of the PR Education Network together with Anka Anton. And well, I'd like to welcome you actually to this special moment, the first webinar from the Education Network. And we're going to share some insights with you that we gained during the first Education Café at the Prague conference in September. But before we're going to share these insights, I can imagine that not all of you might be familiar with the Education Network. So I'm very briefly going to explain a bit more about what the network is and what the network does. Maria, if you can give me the next slide, please. Yes, the next one. Yes, well, as you can see, we started the network in April 2022, and with the idea to put the education part of EUPRERA a bit more on the map. Previously, the focus was very much on research, and as we thought, well, we're all also lecturers, professors, so we teach. It might also be very valuable to share experiences or challenges we encounter with colleagues and well, to learn from that actually. If you can go to the next slide, Maria, here you can see what kind of activities we already have developed or that we want to develop at being the Education Network. Well, the first one mentioned is the Education Café. I'll elaborate more on that a bit in a few minutes. But we also organize the Education Exchange Project. Well, I think in about 2 weeks you will be hearing a bit more about that. The idea actually is that it's a kind of marketplace. On the one hand, we have EUPRERA members who would like to give guest lectures on specific topics. And on the other hand, we have EUPRERA members that are in need of guest lectures. And well, actually, through this education exchange, we hope to match these two groups, and well, that it will be a match made in heaven, actually, to well, exchange knowledge. Another activity is the PR Education Repository. It's still under construction, but the idea is that there will be a place where we can find case studies, literature, articles that we can use in class. Another activity that we organized last year was the PR International Student Competition, a competition for PR students. International, we had 10 groups of 3 or 4 students from very different nationalities. The client was the European Broadcasting Union, and well, they had a very challenging assignment actually. However, we also noticed that this takes a lot of effort, a lot of resources to organize this. So we're now discussing if we might make this a biannual activity. And then some future activities. The first one, the education track at the 2024 conference in Bucharest. And last but not least, Anka, my colleague, co-leader of the network, she managed to submit the cost funding application last Wednesday. And well, hopefully if that will be granted, we will have more resources to develop even more activities or meet each other in person. Well, we'll see how that goes, but that would of course be fantastic. But back to the Education Café. Next slide, please. You can see here that actually the setting of the Education Café during the conference in September. 2 tables. I think each table had about 10 EUPRERA members around it, and we were discussing 4 different topics. These topics were actually chosen by EUPRERA members. And during the discussions, the discussions were recorded, then transferred to transcripts, and based on these transcripts, and of course the notes that the moderators took during these talks, discussions, they retrieved the insights that we're going to well, share with you this afternoon. So next slide, please. Here you can see the speakers of today, and Anne-Marie, the both Camelias, as we call them, and Raluca, they were the moderators during the Education Café. They gained all these insights, and well, they helped us a lot, of course, in realizing this webinar. So they will share the insights with you. And you can also see a picture of Anka down in the middle, who is co-leader and, well, my colleague in the Education Network. So I think it's time to start sharing these insights. And well, the first speaker, if you go, yes, thank you, Maria. The next speaker is Camelia Kushner, and she will share all the insights with you about Gen Z and how to bridge the gap. And
only that I'm the other Camelia.
See that this is the wrong Camelia. Yes, there you are.
Thank you, Monique. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today to discuss a topic that is, I think, a concern for many of us. Gen Z, how to talk with them, how to bridge the gap. Are we speaking the same language? I will share some insights from our recent discussions in Prague on this topic and provide a set of recommendations for all of us to better engage with Gen Z. First, participants emphasized, and I have to underline that we had the chance to have some Gen Z participants at the Education Café in Prague, some PhD students. So they emphasize the need to empathy and to understanding our students. It was said that we as professors should speak their language. Yes, we can also see, I think, yes, and the next slide. So it was said that we as professors should speak their language. We have to use examples and references that are relevant to their experiences, such as popular social media platforms like TikTok. On the other hand, and we can pass to the next slide, there was this idea that we have to recognize generational differences. So in this sense, it's essential somewhere to acknowledge that all generations are different. So the generation gap is natural and should not be seen as a problem. Instead, it's an opportunity for intergenerational learning and understanding. Gen Z appreciates clear communication. They often know what they want and expect the same clarity from others. So this would be vital for educators. Gen Z is often seen as extremely confident. it was said that a 19-year-old student might be the most confident person in the world. I really like this idea. And finally, let's remember that working with Gen Z students can be an experience that keep us young. Also, Gen Z has a significant purchasing power and they become increasingly relevant for companies and industries. Also, recommendations, and we can pass to the next slide. Yes, thank you. We should use empathy. We should learn their preoccupation, and when explaining theoretical concepts, we should use references from their generation. Also, we have to avoid dramatizing the generation gap. Briefly, so this is the short the short insight that we had. And thank you for your attention. I look forward to our discussion, and I will give the floor to my colleague Raluca to introduce you the next topic.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much, Camelia, and thank you to the organizers. So the next topic, and Maria, we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much. We definitely address this question of this relationship between sustainability and public relations education. We started discussing from how do we teach and embed sustainability in our courses or programs, in modules, assignment briefs, etc. But then we actually broaden the conversation, as you'll see, to these very ontological question, which lies at the core of public relations. How do we enable a clearer link between sustainability and PR pedagogy? And that's how we go to the next slide. Because drawing from our participants' interviews and conducting thematic analysis, I extracted these 4 dimensions of which I think we can definitely build on and together research and or think of it as a conceptual pedagogical framework. So 4 dimensions that I'm going to explain and I'm going to deepen in a minute: understandings of sustainability, sustainability in the public relations curriculum, participatory pedagogy, how do we actually embed sustainability through participation and engagement with our students, and of course, how do we think about the impact that sustainability has in public relations practice, in public relations scholarship, and how do we teach that to our students. So next slide. So discussing about understandings, as you can see, it was a very rich conversation from different angles and from different perspectives. And we identified in this cafe and through this very exploratory context, we identified 3 paradigms or 3 understandings of public relations and this relationship between sustainability and public relations. Some participants, for instance, have said that sustainability is already embedded in public relations because public relations means ethical two-way communication with organizational public. So definitely this co-creational paradigm was very important and relevant for some of our participants, whereas others have talked a little bit, have talked more about the way that public relations is being seen, is being taught in their universities, this expansion of looking at public relations from a sociocultural understanding and the sociocultural impact of public relations. So sustainability is definitely involved and included in this broader paradigm. And the third understanding is to look at public relations and this relationship with sustainability from a meta-modernist look or angle. And what this means is to teach students how to deal with tensions, how to deal with multiple subjectivities of audiences, of organizations, and between different actors that might be in conflict, that might be in tension. And definitely this is something that I think we also saw in many papers in this year's EUPRERA Congress at Prague. Whereas if we talk about curriculum, we saw in relationship to sustainability, a range and a variety of practices, of pedagogical practices, from topical focus on sustainability in various modules, through case studies, through topics, through theories, 2 actually degrees dedicated to sustainable PR and sustainable teaching environments. Many participants have stressed out, as we will definitely, I'm going to catch up in the actionable insights about decolonizing the curriculum, about and the importance to actually invite ethical guest speakers, to embed and to design authentic and problem-solving assignment briefs that definitely address this tension between organizations and sometimes their various publics, and the importance of the universities in which us as peer educators we work, the importance for social justice values and mission statements. If we go to the next slide. In terms of participatory pedagogy, it was highlighted, and this links very well with what Camelia just presented. How do we address the needs of this Generation Z student population, right? So definitely what many participants have stressed is to embed more and more topics and more paradigms and theories about social movements, about social change into the curriculum, to invite practitioners and professionals who commit to these sustainable principles, and to actually establish a dialogue to involve students in the pedagogy of public relations. In terms of impact, as you can see, there was a very rich conversation about what kind of graduate do we want, what kind of PR graduate do we want, and do we train and do we form? And many of our participants have stressed these dimensions in our future graduate cohort, which is critical thinker, student and graduate that's connected to the latest sociocultural trends and perspectives, and should be ethical and moral. And lastly, in terms of actionable insights and follow-ups, many of our participants have stressed the importance of decolonizing the curriculum, having more non-Western resources, about the fact that it's a lot of the scholarship is in English language, and also the theories and the paradigms are also from Western spaces, and they would definitely like more opportunities to collaborate with colleagues from different countries. So that's it from me and sustainability and public relations pedagogy, and I'd like to give the floor to Camelia Akmetu for the next question. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody. Thank you. Thank you to the EUPRERA organizers for the Education Café in Prague and for this webinar, and thank you to all the participants who actually attended the Education Café in Prague. So my role during the Education Café was to talk about from negative to positive, and actually to see if, let us say, the instruments that we have been using in the past are indeed negative, or do we need a blend between this negative and positive? So let us move to the other slide, please. Okay, so what the survey before the Education Café started showed that we have some dull and problematic tools, okay, that we have been using in the past. And the discussion was, are we going to use this, let us call them dull or problematic tools, or do we have to change them somehow and insert them into a sort of positive and constructive in the classroom, for example, integrating ChatGPT for our classes? So let us move to the other slide. And here you have some quotes from our participants, and the main topics that were highlighted were the following, namely the critical assessment of the role of technology in education. Then we have the problem of time management during classes, and the last one would be the importance of visual communication while we teach to our students. And some of the insights that are presented in the next slide talk about actually the things that pandemic brought. It brought not only negative things, but also this sort of synchronous teaching. And the solution would be, for example, some of the participants highlighted the importance of screencasts that they use during their classes, the learning platforms that they use. Also the idea that slides, okay, that were considered, let us say, dull and problematic, are not so dull and problematic because we use them, all of us actually use slides, but depending on how we adapt the content on the slides. So we do not use so much text, but rather this visual communication, and to present case studies, for example, or let us say relevant experts talking about their work and their campaigns or the work they do. Another point highlighted by the participant was the role of ChatGPT, and some of the participants acknowledged that they use ChatGPT, but not allowing students actually to write essays, but rather to encourage them to have this critical perspective, as where Raluca highlighted before, namely that they could create, let us say, messages, but actually then to critically thinking about if these messages are appropriate or not, to improve them for their classes. Then another topic that was interesting and actually triggered a lot of debate was how students present their work. And one of the participants highlighted the idea that she uses these recordings of students' presentations and allow them to critically comment on their performance. That was an interesting topic. Another topic that was highlighted was working in teams, because we have to admit that there is a great challenge for young students to work in teams. And the other point was how to evaluate these teams. And two main actually ways of evaluating teams were emphasized by the participants. On the one hand, to evaluate the whole team and the students to decide if they deserve the same grade. Or another way of evaluating the teams was that the other students from the other groups actually were teams graded another team. So these were the two ways of evaluating the teams. And let us move to the other slide to see some actionable recommendations or outputs. So as I said, pandemic also brought a more emphasis on synchronous teaching and screencasts. I think that they are a good solution for those universities actually who allow this. Working in teams is another recommendation that could be implemented. Role games was another recommendation highlighted by the participants. During classes, to invite experts in the field, and of course to create a dialogue between these experts and the students. And why not to include AI in the classroom, but students being able to provide this critical assessment of the text they produce while using ChatGPT, for example. Thank you. That would be all from me. Let us move to, I'll give the floor to Anne-Marie Coton, and she'll talk about the challenge of reading.
Yes, thank you very much, Camilla, and thank you for organizing this webinar, allowing us to give you the insights that we collected during the Edu Café. Next slides, please. So I will go through the different learnings that we had. The first one was that reading is an intergenerational issue, because of course we presented it as how difficult is it to bring our students to reading. But the first learning was reading is not just an issue for students. It's really intergenerational, and there were some participants referring to this attention span that we have for an average human being of 8 seconds, which is even less than the attention span of a goldfish. Next slide. The second learning is about the fact that academic literacy is no longer a given. That was something that we thought was present in the past, but our students are reading less and less academic and professional literature. So one of the conclusion that was made by participants was that in the age of immediacy and information overload, the effort that is required to really read academic texts outweighs the added value of reading. So they don't understand, or they don't see anymore, the joy of reading and the fact that opening a book is opening the world. Next slide. The third learning was that we really shared major concerns about this big question of how to bring our students to reading. And the major concerns were about that we have to explain why, explain what, and explain how to read. And beside those three big questions, there were also secondary concerns that were about how to explain where to find the appropriate literature, which could sound as a kind of paradox because they have access to everything. And also how to explain how to prioritize authors. Next slide. We go into the big ones and the big questions that we asked ourselves and that we shared about how to read. And let's go into keys to literacy. Next slide. So it was possible to divide those big questions based on some problems that were identified. The first problem is they don't recognize how an article is built. So there is an actionable recommendation that came. The first one was that some of our colleagues are structuring the article, the academic article that they will use, using a Google form in which they have different questions about what is the objective, what is methodology, what is the core rationale, what are the results. So helping students to understand how an academic article is built. Of course, what is always very important is to give feedback. So it's not just having the students giving the answers how they think the objective is, but it's also, of course, giving feedback. Next slide. So we are still on how an article is built, but a second or another actionable recommendation from other colleagues was that they were working step by step, really guiding students through how an article is built, and they use colors. So the first level is really having us as teachers, putting colors into an academic article in order for students to understand, oh, this is the introduction. Oh, this is where I found the methodology. Oh, so really using colors. And as a follow-up, having a quiz where students are individually evaluated in order to be able, once the colors are away, to see if they really understood how the article is structured. Second level is asking them to use colors and to identify the different structures, the different blocks, making the structure of an academic article. Next slide, please. So beside how to read, there is also, of course, the problem of what. They don't understand what they read. So an actionable recommendation here was that some colleagues are developing Q&As to help students understand their reading. So it's really about asking questions about, well, what did you read? And asking them to express and to give an explanation on, for instance, what is the difference between concept A and concept D that are developed in the article, and so on and so forth. So there were, again, several questions that were brought in. And again, very important, not just asking the question, getting the answers from the students, but also providing feedback in order for students to be guided into, understand better what they are reading. Next slide. In this understanding what they are reading, another actionable recommendation was a kind of step-by-step guidance in order to have an increasing complexity in what they are reading. Also having the first year selection of articles that could be expressed at easy to read, and then just increasing the complexity. Of course, related to this actionable recommendation, we have another question, and it is how to prioritize authors, of course. Next slide. So we had how, we had what, and now we have why. Why reading? So bringing again the joy of sharing. So the actionable recommendation here was organizing informal Q&A amongst peers, so students to students on their reading. So we really have here students teach students. And there was a wonderful idea of some colleagues that told us that they were creating a book clubs, and that this book club, for instance, was organized every Friday, enhancing social interactions among students, but also emulating them in some new reading, discovering new readings based on what their peers were reading and were telling about their reading. So this, of course, had to be integrated into the teaching program. Next slide. Because this is about an informal exchange. Why reading? Well, it's not only about joy, it's also about building knowledge. So here the actionable recommendation is scheduling formal exchange among peers on their reading. So that means that reading is really linked to the output. The reading is put as a conditio sine qua non to get an output being evaluated. They also talked about we have to challenge them to fact-checking. We have to ask them weekly reports where they really tell us where they got their ideas from. We have to ask them to exchange notes and references with the others, so they bring the others to some new readings. And this have to be part of the active process of the teaching program with peer evaluation and also review evaluation. Next slide. So just to summarize those actionable recommendations on how to bring students to read, we had ideas on structures using Google Forms, Scholars, on content, developing Q&As, increasing complexity, on social development and personal building, creating book clubs, on shaping their thinking and critical approach, linking output to reading. But what was really emphasized by our colleagues was the importance of feedback. And of course, let's not forget incentives. Next slide. So as a kind of conclusion of this part of our EduCafé, when we looked at this youth, the Gen Z, well, they have tools previous generations could only dream of. They have unlimited access to, in between brackets, all knowledge. However, they don't know how to structure it, and they don't know how to process it. So that was really a big conclusion that was shared by all of us. Our role as teacher is really key. Next slide. We, of course, saw a lot of next steps, beside explaining why and what and how to read or not to read. We also liked to know more about how you explain where to find the appropriate literature and how you explain how to prioritize authors. Next slide. And well, we're sure that this will be another EUPRERA Education Café. So I thank you for your attention, and I think we can go to the next slide, and I think also to the discussion. Yeah, next slide. I think this is a question that's asked to all of us and to the participants that are joining us on this webinar now.
Yeah, I think Enka is the one who's going to jump in here. Yes.
Hello. Hi, this is me jumping in. Literally jumping in. Hi, hello, hi everyone. Very, very happy to see everyone and to listen to everyone that everything that my colleagues presented till now. So as Anne-Marie was saying, thank you for that tour de force, so the joy and the challenge of reading. Basically, as she was mentioning in the end, we hope there will be another education cafe, because we want to make this as one of the recurrent activities of the EUPRERA Congresses. The next one will be in Bucharest. The one after that will be in Lund. So the education cafe, I think, had two major gains. One was one that was not visible for people who did not attend. It was a gain for the people that attended. The interaction, you know, and the exchange of ideas and just the sheer pleasure of just talking to people about common challenges, about possible solutions. I think it was a wonderful thing. In the image that that Monique showed you in the beginning, you could see, you know, the tables of people discussing, and you could see me and Monique, you know, outside of the discussions. And what I can tell you is that both of us, yeah, exactly that one. Both of us wanted to, you know, jump in on the discussion because it was so nice, you know, to see people, to hear them discuss and interact. And I think, you know, after a few difficult years, it was good to feel that you are not, you know, alone in these challenges, that there are others who are experiencing them and are looking for solutions. And to that point, I think that a lot of the things that we are doing in the education network address that. You know, creating communities and a community that can help, can support our educational activities, because, well, basically that's the basis of what we do. So the second part, the second gain we got from the Education Cafe were the insights that our four moderators presented, and thank you very much for all their work. They really carried this activity, preparing for it. Moderating throughout the event, then going through the recordings, going through the transcripts, selecting ideas. So thank you very much for your work. And basically they showed you what came up. Some of the insights and the recommendations might be things that you already incorporated. Some might be ideas that you can use, in your future activities. What I can tell you is that we are trying to incorporate and to align what we do in the Education Cafe with the insights that came out of the Education Cafe, with the discussions that we have with the members of the education network. So for example, at some point, Raluca was telling you about the meta-modern approach. We incorporated that, so we have that dimension in the cost application that Monique was mentioning in the beginning. So we try to have this bottom-up construction approach to the education network, because that's how we integrate the needs of the educators into whatever output we have from the network. So that being said, it would be good to go through if you have questions. I know that we have one question, and if Camelia Kushnir is still with us, we have a question about Gen Z and whether they really know what they want, because one of the insights said they know what they want. So Camelia, what's your opinion based on the discussions? And yeah.
Well, thank you for the question. In fact, yes, we had this idea during the education cafe that the Gen Z, our students, they know very well what they want, or at least they are very confident and they think they know what they want. Now, maybe we have to further investigate and discover if they really know what they want. But they think they know.
They're confident about that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how percentages are from generation to generation, but a lot of the times when you are 17, 18, 19, you are very confident about what you want from life. Maybe the percentage is higher in their case. Maybe that could be an area where education research could help.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to what Monique was saying, in the beginning, that we propose, and there will be an education research track in the EUPRERA Congress. So maybe that could be an interesting thing to go towards. I'm not sure if we have any other questions.
No,
I know that
any other
there
one.
are.
No.
Maybe people are thinking about it, or we answered some of the questions.
Yeah.
Maybe Maria, could we get everyone here? Yeah, so we wonderful, great. Okay, so we have everyone here, not just on the very nice picture that we had for the promotion of the webinar. So in case we don't get any other questions, could I don't know, go to each of you and say, I don't know, what was the feeling that you got out of the education cafe? How you felt the participants? How you felt the interaction? Or
no
we
problem.
have oh, actually, maybe you can think about that, and meanwhile we have a question, so I don't so we have a question. What are your suggestions for effective teaching in classes of more than 100 students?
That is a great question for the next Edu Cafe, because the idea is to have as many insights as possible from a lot of colleagues who are experiencing the same situation, teaching to very large classes. So I think it would be wonderful to have those experiences, and also to hear what are the best and the worst practices they had during their career.
That could be a very good idea for the next education cafe, you know, really discussing or maybe having it as you know, as one of the topics, because we really crowdsourced the topics for this one, so we can include it there. I know that some of us really need some answers to these questions. All right, so does anyone want to offer any insight on that? I found that humor works, to be honest, because some of us teach 180, 150, something like that, and I think that humor works a lot of the times, and popular culture examples work a lot of the times. So yeah, and examples that they don't expect. Right. So another so I believe it's a comment from Ilana. Hi Ilana. I believe that creating a shared repository of PR cases could be a very interesting initiative to enhance teaching performance. Yes, we are working on that. Is one of the activities that we actually we've been exploring for some time here. It's one of the recommendations of the Commission on PR Education too. So it's something that we're definitely working on. Hopefully we'll be able to communicate within EUPRERA more on that quite soon. Then Esther, hi Esther. I really like the book club, but can you give some tips how to get them started? Is it colloquium groups based or course assignment based?
Yeah,
Anne
well,
Marie?
yeah, it was on the reading. Yeah, the book club. It was it started with the initiative of one lecturer who said, well, wouldn't it be an idea to read and to share some of your readings? So it was very informal at the beginning, and at this moment it's really embedded into the teaching program of the students. So this is what I said. It's every Friday. Well, in that university at least, so that she was able to really schedule this as a kind of course. So it's within the program, and on Friday morning, the entire morning is dedicated to we discuss your reading. And so every single student has to present in a way or another. We didn't really get into everything of the details, but each student really had to present in a summary what the reading was of the previous week, and the learning out of the reading. So it was not just I read this book or I read this article, but it was really what did I take out from this reading related to one or another assignment. So those assignments were not necessarily the assignments linked to that course, that PR course, but it could just be I read this book and these were the insights that I got for the course on methodology or whatever other course they had. But so the idea was really to put it in a more informal way, because, well, the idea of a book club is indeed a little bit more informal, but to have it really structured as part of the entire teaching program of that year.
Mm-hmm. It's really nice when informal ideas can, be integrated into the formal structure of the course, and then but you can keep some of the informality still, in the final aspect. Okay, great. Sarah here mentioned that there is a full report created by Deloitte, but if you could also share the link. I mean, it doesn't appear for me, but maybe it appears on YouTube. Right, so for everyone that joined through the link that registered, you will be able to see the the video of the webinar after we are finished on YouTube too. Raluca, you had a suggestion regarding the the 100 plus question?
Yes. So for large groups, what I found very useful, even in lecture settings, is to include polling software. So, for instance, to engage them at the beginning of the lecture with a question, and then I think that even less confident students, through the anonymity of a poll included in the lecture, they can definitely participate, engage, and then, of course, discussion on the results, so that they can see how their answers have been used in the framework of the lecture. Another technique which I think was very effective was buzz groups. So for instance, I just stopped the lecture at one point, and if I wanted to enhance a concept, if I wanted to test their understanding of a concept, then I was asking them to do something in buzz groups, and of course come back with some responses. And again, building on the responses in the lecture content, and provide, rhetorical questions work very good, besides what you said, Anka, in terms of humor, and providing pauses for their reflection. Because, when we have something kind of really hard content, reflecting and giving very small pauses, let's say, for them to reflect on what they have seen or what they have listened to, helps them to retain the information better, I think. So just some of the ideas. Of course, I can't necessarily say that I have all the solutions, but this is something that has proved highly effective in the past.
Yeah. And for example, if you want an alternative to polling, depending on what you want to get out of that activity, for example, I use as an alternative, I use Answer Garden. It's a website that generates word clouds. So it's very nice because they can see, and you project it on a large, on a large screen, and they can see real time, what they're thinking about. So for example, you're exploring a concept, they can input like 5 words, that associate with that concept, and you instantly have that. Or for example, I wanted to show how the concept of top of mind works, right? So I asked them to think about, 5 brands, and they could see their top of mind appearing on screen. So like really fast, as you mentioned, polls or word clouds work very well in order to help them visualize, the concepts that you are presenting. Sometimes, when you deliver a lot of words, it ends up as a word salad. And Marie was mentioning, the time span, the attention span. So yeah, maybe stopping at some point and kind of helping them anchor the concepts could be a way to approach it. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I don't know if we have, or any of you want to add anything about the Education Café experience? I don't know.
It was wonderful. Well, you already said it. It was wonderful. Well, because it was one of the very first time we came all together again after this pandemic. So it was great just meeting people in real life again. And I think that we all experience how important it is to meet each other, not just through the screen, but really to share things and to discuss in real life the one with the other, because it's also easier. We experience some differences in cultural perspectives during the Edu Café, because we had people from different continents. So we had insights from other continents too, which are very different from our view here in Europe, and that's a really an important one. So that was really great to have the opportunity to hear other voices from other continents and to have the opportunity to express those differences. And it was enabled because we were all together in the same space. So we also had the opportunity to see the body language of the people, because some of the wording, just the wording, could have been very offended just through a screen, while having also the body language of the person expressing what she was saying. The words were rude, but the way that she was expressing it was really saying, please, please, I want you to understand my situation. And so I think this is so important to really emphasize, to continue to have those real time and on real site altogether moments.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Anne-Marie.
All right. In that case, just a final thought. We would love, everyone who joined today. If you are not in the education network, to join, either as members of the network, or just to keep track of what we're doing. We want to develop several activities. You saw some of them. We are constantly working on others, and we would like people to be involved with them, take lead in whatever they want from the activities. We do think that usually we do think that the reply to, or the reaction to education activities is wonderful. Our last application, for funding, we wanted to try this. We managed to get 60 people from 28 countries together, so that was wonderful. So it really shows that there is an appetite for education activities, that we all feel the need to exchange this type of experiences. So please join us or follow us. You can send an email to Monique and to myself. You have them on the EUPRERA website, euprera.org. And please keep in touch. If you can attend the next EUPRERA Congress, is wonderful, and you can be part of the next EUPRERA cafes. That would be great. So thank you again to our moderators. Camelia Kushnir had to leave us because teaching, right? She had a class. But thank you to all of you for your support in developing the Education Cafe. Thank you to Anne-Marie for introducing the concept of the World Cafe that we adapted as the Education Cafe. And hopefully we will be able to develop it. And thank you to all of you who joined us today. Hopefully we'll be able to interact a bit more in the future. Thank you again, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.